Yo, what's up guys, Grobs here today with a little bit of a different video. I was invited to Amazon Games and had the chance to interview Tico. So I flew to Seattle and asked him a bunch of questions. And all the questions in this interview are from the community, from you guys. So enjoy the interview. So hi Tico, thanks for inviting me and giving me the opportunity.
Glad you're here.
Maybe you can tell me 2-3 sentences about you for the people that don't know you.
Yeah, I'm Tico. I'm the Globalization Design Manager for Throne and Liberty at Amazon Games. And yeah, I'm just excited to be here, talk more about whatever questions I'm sure you got from your community, and really excited.
Yeah, let's start maybe some questions about you. Have you always been into MMORPGs, or is that like your first MMORPG? Or?
I've played MMOs for a while now. It's probably been, I don't know, 20 years or so since I've been playing MMOs. Played Dark Age of Camelot, World of Warcraft, a little bit of Guild Wars 1, Lost Ark, TL, so a lot of them.
Guild Wars 1 was good. Also,
yeah.
old memories. So now you're playing Throne. What kind of class do you play? I think in Tier 1 you played Crusader quite a bit, right?
No. In Tier 1, I primarily played Invocator and Liberator. So I started as Invocator, transitioned pretty quickly actually over to Liberator. So Liberator is probably my most played. I've been playing it consistently. And then I also play Seeker. So even today, I play those 3 classes. I play Liberator, Invocator, and Seeker, just depending on which type of content I'm doing.
So back then you played also as a healer than Invocator?
I started as a healer, and then my group already had another person healing, so that's when I transitioned to Liberator for DPS. Kind of did a lot of that, but I still played Seeker in PvP, even in Tier 1. So and then I've just always played Seeker in PvP. So
cool. Okay, yeah, but now I've gathered, as you already mentioned, some questions from my community.
Yeah.
And yeah, do you feel ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Let's go. Okay, so I have a couple of questions to different topics. I would like to start with heroic gear. So I think it's a great addition to the game. It gives like a lot of complexity, especially like for build diversity and like just putting builds together. It's like always fun to have like more complexity in that. But it also like brings, I would say, some problems. And like, there was quite a few questions I got from my community. And one of them is if we will be able to synchronize heroic gear in the future. Because why so many people want to have that is simply because they want to play different weapon combinations, right? They play maybe in PvE one weapon, then they play in PvP, like in large scale PvP, one weapon combinations, and in small scale then another one. And the heroic gear, if you can't synchronize it, it just limits you really badly on that.
Yeah, I understand kind of where people are coming from because of that exact reason, right? I mean, I think TL is it's a game where you can play a lot of different weapon combinations and really enjoy it. And that's why we introduced the gear synchronization system to begin with, right, is the ability to do that. So let me first answer your question. I'll give you a little bit more context. Directly, right now, we do not have plans to bring synchronization for heroic weapons, okay? The way that we view heroic, not just weapons, but armor and accessories, is that they are a longer-term chase that we hope players are engaging with and chasing for a longer period of time. Now, right off the bat, the question is, okay, but what if I want to play multiple builds? Do I have to just be subpar without it or whatever? And that's not what we want either. And so I think one of the things you'll notice is some of our timing with heroic weapons was a little bit intentional. We felt that right now, towards the end of Tier 2, people could begin building their first one. But then as Tier 3 launches, there will be a whole new set of things that people are building, whole new set of gear. So when Tier 3 launches, we don't expect everyone to suddenly already have multiple sets ready to go. They're going to have to re-level up their gear to +12. So they're going to need to get there before they have multiple. And then that will open that door for more heroic weapon or armor growth. And the second thing is that even though we're not going to reduce the cost, per se, of leveling heroic gear, we will, over time, begin supplying more of the materials that are necessary to grow it, so that the hurdle for your second or third or fourth weapon, if if you're really hardcore, those hurdles aren't quite as big as they are for the other ones. And we want these weapons to grow with you for many months of time.
I think the problem is that is a little bit, like a lot of people don't like to not play with the full potential of a class, right? Even if it's like PvE, and then it's like, oh, I want to play Invocator, but I don't know, I'm usually playing, I don't know, SNS Greatsword in PvP, and now they want to have this heroic stuff for PvE. Do you don't feel like that there's maybe like another option or something like this in the future for them?
I wouldn't say that we're never going to bring synchronization, but it's just not our plan right now. We want players to have that overall progression that they're still working to for heroic weapons. You know, we really view that heroic items are still a little bit kind of in their infancy. I mean, they've, you know, by the time this interview airs, probably less than 2 months, they will have been in the game, right? So we don't necessarily think that we're at a point where it's extreme that players don't have 3 different heroic weapons already or whatever. And as I mentioned, I think that our kind of hypothesis is that players will be growing those heroic weapons kind of in tandem with the new tier 3 gear they're going to be working towards. And so I don't actually, my hypothesis is that players aren't going to be ready to have 3 builds, you know, 2 weeks after tier 3 gear launches, right? I think right now it feels that way because we're in the tail end of tier 2. Everyone's got their set and then some. And so you're eager to say, oh, I want to do it for every weapon. But I think over the time you will realize that you have more progression that you can do in those weapons. And that's our hope. But we're not tied to that. And I think hopefully that's something our community kind of has felt from us in the past is like, we feel strongly about the design choices that we've made. We put them out there. We try to have some conviction. We don't want to change them immediately because sometimes we have more of a longer term vision, but we're not tied to that either. You know, we never had in our vision to add gear synchronization, but we added that because we felt like it was necessary. It became a blocker for what we wanted TL to be without that synchronization. So if that happens or if we need to do it, like we're not going to be shy about changing our mind and going for it, but we think it's a little too soon for that.
Okay. The next question also regarding heroic gear. Of course, changing the heroic traits costs quite a bit of unlock stones, especially like, let's say for people that are not playing consistently or didn't play consistently. You need, I think, around about 4K heroic traits if you are unlucky with the item drops for changing all the traits, which is quite a bit, right? Do you think there might be a change in the future for that?
Almost always we're trying to balance when it comes to progression cost is what's the right amount that it feels good to chase, but not so much that it feels overwhelming. That's always the balance that you have. You know, people want to progress. They want to feel like when they're playing the game, they're progressing their character. And, you know, sometimes I think we rush right to the end and then you feel like, well, now there's nothing for me to work towards too. So there is a little bit of that. So we're trying to find that balance. Now, when it comes specifically to unlock stones, I think there's a couple key points we should keep in mind. One is, when did heroic weapons release? As I mentioned, it's pretty late into tier 2. And so most of what people were doing with co-op dungeons, et cetera, and getting those tier 2 tokens, they weren't spending them on gear anymore. So those were almost a 1-to-1 conversion for unlock stones, you know? And so we knew that. We knew that players had a lot of unlock stones saved because they weren't needing to unlock traits anymore. They had their kind of gear set up. And any future tokens that they got, they were probably going to invest in unlock stones. So we felt if the hurdle was too small, we kind of end up in a spot where, again, very quickly you sort of consumed that heroic growth. You didn't feel like you were consistently working towards something, and we like that. We like that players. I mean, TL is that type of game where you're often working through things, and we think our players, for the most part, enjoy that when it's not excessive. So to your second question about like, okay, what about a consistent way to get unlock stones? Well, one is the tokens that I just mentioned. The other is that we're going to continue to provide them in basically every event that we have. We provide them in Twitch drops. So we keep doing that. So if you do just consistent, and even I would just say a consistent average engagement. If you look at our events, we try to structure the shops so you don't have to do every single thing to be able to buy out the shop, or at least the power related items of the shop. So we're going to keep adding that. And they will probably increase in time. As I mentioned, we think that if you think of heroic growth kind of on a curve, the longer they've been out, the kind of easier it should be to progress them, and we'll provide more of those materials over time so that naturally, as you're getting that second and third set of your tier 3, you're kind of also consistently getting that second and third heroic set.
Yeah, I think like one thing I just want to add here is, yes, like a lot of people got a lot of those tier 2 tokens, but I think there are also like quite a few people that, for example, also in my community, that have maybe stopped playing for a while, and then they come back and they had absolutely 0 tokens. Yeah. So they're starting from scratch, and this is quite then like getting like these 5K or like let's say 3K tokens, whatever, how lucky you get, it's quite a bit, right? So this takes quite a while.
Yeah.
So just just as an idea, maybe if we get like from the new content we are getting, if we get there like consistently some way of getting unlock stones would be really nice. Because it feels like, of course, you can do it through the weekly contracts and so on. You're getting those tokens, but it feels always you're really limited on that, on how much you can actually get them per week. Like it takes really a long time. So having like a consistent way of getting that would be really nice, I think.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I think that's fair feedback, and the other challenge is it's the flip side, right?
Yeah,
There's always the
100%.
It's probably one of the hardest things for MMOs, right? Is how do you balance making the progression feel meaningful for someone who plays an average amount of time and the most extreme, right? And so that's what we always want to balance, but we don't like that gap to get too big. So we're always considerate of that, and we're always looking at, how quickly is the gap increasing between the average player and the hardcore player. And so, I think you bring up some reasonable points.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, next question regarding the raid. I think raid was also like a really good content that a lot of people were looking for, especially like PvE players. Maybe like a general question, what percentage of the current player mass has cleared all the raid bosses on like the hard mode?
Oh, on hard mode?
Like of the current player base, if you know that, right? So not of the like I'm not sure like they are still playing, like I'd say.
Yeah, I actually don't. I haven't looked up the numbers for as it compares to the current player base. I generally look at those who have attempted it, because some people aren't as interested in it or don't attempt it. But I think the latest I saw of the players that attempted it for normal mode, I think this was last week, so maybe it's gone up, but it was over 95% of players who had attempted normal mode had completed the raid. Hard mode was significantly less. I mean, I think it was around 20%, if I remember correctly, that had attempted hard mode and had completed all the bosses. Of course, it varied. Some bosses had higher or less or whatever, but that's where it stood.
So are you happy with the difficulty mode?
I actually am happy with it. The way that we approached the raid was, the reason we added 2 difficulty modes was because we wanted one to be very accessible. Everybody could do it. They could enjoy the raid, enjoy the general content, of course, get the rewards. But we still wanted something for our top-end PvE players to chase. And we think that's really important for the game, is to always have something that's very difficult for our most hardcore and engaged players to kind of be chasing after. And I think we saw hard mode really do that. I mean, several weeks into it, there was still a very small amount of players. You might remember from one of my Tico talks, I think I said like less than 1,000 had even completed hard mode at that time. And so, of course, that's increased a lot now. People understand better how it works. They've progressed their heroic materials. And that's what we wanted. We wanted that as you were slowly becoming more powerful, you were going to be able to complete now this harder content. It was going to be a bit more forgiving. Maybe you had more HP or more attack power. So we've been, actually, I have to say, really happy about how that's progressed. And so now on to Nightmare mode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then regarding the Nightmare mode.
Okay.
Like I really love hard PvE content, and I'm really excited for that. But for the Nightmare mode, it will be, I think, released when the video goes live in 1 week or so.
August 21st, yeah.
August 21st, perfect.
I think that's a Thursday.
Yeah. So for the Nightmare mode, you need to have a gear requirement of 7k CP.
That's right.
So it's a little bit of a personal question from my side, but like I really would like to do it, but it seems like I can't do it because I took a break and now my masters probably won't be high enough. And now I will be probably at 6.9 or something like this. Then why do we have here like a 7k CP gear score requirement? Because like for PvE content, especially for PvE content, like let's say 6.5 would be totally enough, because like a lot of the additional stats that you get, like for example for the last mastery points, it's really just useful for PvP and not really useful for PvE anymore. So is there maybe...
I don't know that I would agree with that characterization fully. I mean, I do think it depends a lot on, like, some classes that might be true, right? Some classes, most of your PvE advantage in mastery came in the earlier levels, and later stuff mainly helps PvP. I don't think that's necessarily true for everything. I mean, even some classes get small DPS boosts from getting more max mana nodes or things like this. So I wouldn't fully characterize it that way, but let me go back to your original question of the 7k CP. We put it there because we think that that's the minimum that's needed to really have a legitimate chance of completing the raid. And it's not just offensive stats. It could be defensive stats. Our ability is going to kill you more quickly or more slowly. Do you have any room for error or not? All of these come into play. And of course, combat power can be it's a proxy for your strength. We understand that, of course. It's not just, you could have 7K CP with, fear chance everywhere, and that's not actually going to help you. We understand that, but that's generally where we set the mark. I understand you feel a little bit like, hey, I could do it at 6.8 or 6.9, but we do feel comfortable with the 7K CP. I don't think that you need maxed out masteries to get to 7K CP. And I also think that Nightmare mode is supposed to be kind of the end-all be-all. Okay. And it's also coming out only 3 weeks or 4 weeks before Tier 3 gears. And when Tier 3 gear releases, everyone's going to get a jump in combat power as well. So I know that maybe you feel like I want to be there on day one. I empathize or I sympathize with you. But we still think that 7K is probably the right spot for now. Just kind of targeting, you have to really be in that extreme level to have a chance to beat the Nightmare raid.
Fair enough. So right now, there are a lot of players that do on a consistently the normal mode and also the hard mode. And I think a lot of players try to do the hard mode, but are not completing. Right? They're not completing it, and they feel left behind. Right? They feel like I need, all the other players get ahead of me, and they want to keep up with them. So are there any plans to let those players do the normal modes twice, for example? Or so maybe they get less rewards, but so they don't feel that left behind.
Yeah, we don't have plans right now to be able to get the rewards more than once on normal mode. I would say we're taking a little bit of different approach, and we generally agree with you. And one thing I mentioned before was we want there to always be some kind of the biggest chase for the hardcore endgame PvE player. We really feel strongly about that. And up until now, that was the hard mode. With Nightmare mode releasing, we feel that we can make the requirements of completing hard mode a bit easier now, because those players now have a new chase that they can go after with Nightmare. They're not dependent on showing off their status through completing hard mode or things like that. And because they can chase Nightmare mode now, we'll be kind of reducing the barrier for hard mode. So we won't reduce the entry requirements, but the buff that is present in normal mode, so every time your team wipes, you get that buff in health and attack power, you will get that in hard mode now, or in difficult mode. It won't stack as high. In normal mode, it stacks up to 10. So in hard mode, it'll only go up to 5. But we think that will, as you said, kind of slowly start bringing more and more players to complete that. And that's what we expect. We don't want a situation where all of a sudden hard mode just loses all purpose. We think players actually enjoy that challenge, enjoy the feeling of I struggled and I overcame, I struggled and I overcame. And then eventually, oh, now this is really easy. And I think people are at that point with normal mode. If you look at normal mode, people were struggling, average players struggling, overcame, and now it's easy. So it's great. It's time for a new challenge, hard mode, struggle, overcome, easy. So we're hopeful that we have that kind of transition as well.
Okay, perfect. Another question, do you know already what will be the rewards for the Nightmare mode in the dungeon? Will it be also like additional material for upgrading the gear?
You will get some additional material, so you get a same amount as hard mode, I'm pretty sure. And then you will get accessories from it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
You will still be able to get accessories if you don't beat Nightmare mode. You'll be able to buy it from the vendor, just like you can with weapons and armor. But if you complete Nightmare mode, you're also getting accessories, so you get that benefit of completing it.
Similar cost, like 80?
Yeah, similar cost. 80, I think it's 80. I think it's 80, yeah. And there's also a morph to chase. I'm really excited about the morph. I think it looks awesome. And hopefully that gets some of that repetitive play for people to chase after that morph. It's not a guaranteed drop, so you're going to have to play it over time. And
it's only from Kalantia, the last boss?
Only from Nightmare last boss.
Okay. What is the drop chance? Do you know?
I know.
Can you share?
No.
Okay.
It's reasonable. It's not like 0.5% or anything. It's a reasonable amount.
Okay. Yeah. Right. The next topic, also like a question I got asked multiple times, because right now we are getting more and more PvE content. People love to test different builds, optimize their builds through runes, masteries, artifacts, different team compositions. There's like so many variables. Yeah. And especially now with the Nightmare mode coming, everyone is asking for a damage meter or something, sort of a damage meter. Yeah. So will we ever have something like this? Also maybe to add, it doesn't need to be like a full damage meter. It could be also like, for example, like you only have your own damage meter, or you have like an end screen summary of where you see something.
Yeah, we've seen a lot about it too. Okay. I personally am a fan of damage meters. Let me first answer your question. I want to give you a little bit of context behind it. So short answer is we are actively now working on bringing a damage meter to the game. So that's something that we're working on. I'm not ready to share any dates yet. We're working on that. And when we get closer, of course, we'll share it as we always try to do. So we're now actively working on bringing a damage meter. Let me give a little context behind that. It's a bit of a, it's actually a divisive topic, damage meters. I think if you talk to hardcore players, it's not. Everybody wants it. Everybody wants to see damage meters. They want to see who's performing, who's not. They want to see their own performance. But when you look at more average players, you don't really get that same feeling from a lot of them. You know, we discussed this internally for a long time. One of the things that we are particularly worried about always with damage meters is toxicity. You know, does it lead to a situation where people are getting kicked even though their performance is fine, it's just not up to whatever someone else's standard is or whatever, or are they getting fully gatekept, not even let into the content? That's something we really worry about. We don't want those types of situations, and you can't fully prevent it. Of course, we understand that, but that's one of our biggest concerns. So we don't know exactly what this damage meter is going to look like. We're right now leaning towards a self only, so you can only see your own performance, but we haven't fully settled on that. And so we are trying to bring it, and or we are working on bringing it, and you know, we're still discussing exactly what it looks like, but it's coming. I'm a little curious, where do you fall on the DPS meter desire and impact to the game?
Yeah, I for sure want a DPS meter, like 100%. Yeah. Like especially because nowadays everyone is using like dummy tests as a reference, and dummy tests are just really not accurate. Like it makes absolutely no sense. There are so many variables in a rate, right? That they play in, and some that's like a damage test on dummy is just super misleading. It's like even some classes that are actually maybe not even good, like or even like below average, might be really good in a dummy test. It's like it's just not good.
You can't see if someone lives through a mechanic. Yeah, it turns out DPS is 0 if you're dead. It turns out.
That's also true. That's also true. So I think it's really much needed, but it's. At the same time, also like I understand the concerns with toxicity, but at the same time, you see also like quite a few other games that actually have it, and where also like casual players enjoy it.
No, I think you're right. I mean, like in the best scenario, it's a way for players to consistently improve their performance, to analyze how they're doing, look for ways to improve, and if they're not performing, ask friends or others for help. That is absolutely the best case scenario. You know, we're always a little bit cautious about. Well, there is the worst case scenario for a reason, right? Increased toxicity or these types of things. But as I said, we feel now, because we're having so much high-end PvE content and we're adding more PvP content as well, we're reaching that point where players really want to feel like they can tell what their performance is. So that's why we've made the decision to begin working on it and bring it to the game.
And I think seeing only your own DPS is also fine, as it would be also fine. Right. Because if you are like in a pre-made group and you want to compare stuff, then you obviously can tell the others. I have that and that DPS. Yep. Okay, perfect. That's great. Yeah. I'm excited for that. Yeah. Do you have like a roundabout like a date or something? Like, can you say this? I mean, 2026?
I'm hopeful for 2025, but I just don't know yet because it will depend on what level of perfect and detail that we bring into it, of course. So I'm hopeful for it, but no quoting me on that.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Everyone else will quote me on it now. Yeah, it's too late. I already said it.
Yeah, regarding optimizing builds and so on, for the raids, a lot of people, also my community, ask for the specific stats on the bosses. Can you give do you know the stats, or do you think there's a possibility that you share the stats for the bosses, like maybe how much endurance they have, so that we could optimize things?
Yeah, I don't know every stat off the top of my head, obviously for every boss, but I don't think that that's something that we'll share. We think that with this and other requests for target dummies or the stats, all of this really revolves around wanting to know, are they performing well or not, and how can they increase performance? We think a lot of this will be covered by the damage meter, the DPS meter. We think that's what will allow you for all of your different scenarios to see, am I doing better or worse than I was doing last time? Does this seem to be having a good impact or not? And so we feel like that will kind of be covered in that bucket. We don't really have plans to kind of release the stats of individual bosses.
Okay, Fair enough.
I know you're the
I would love to have that.
you're the build theory crafter guy, so I know you really want it, but it's not in our plans for now.
Okay, it's fine. So we have to go in and have to test ourselves.
Exactly. You got to play the game to find out.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Now a little bit of a different topic. Some people in my community asked also the question regarding the rock, paper, scissors system, especially in PvP. Are you satisfied with how it is currently? So it sometimes can be really frustrating if you're like hitting someone that is both full magic evasion, you're a staff player, you literally can't hit him, right? It's like you have to ignore him and have to hit another person. Are you like fine with that, or do you think about introducing maybe some ways of countering that, or?
Yeah. I think it just depends a little bit like what lens you look at it from. First of all, like TL is it's a group-based PvP game. We aren't really built for this sort of 1v1 style combat. That's why we don't have 1v1 arenas. We don't even really have duels in the game, because what would you do in that situation, right? It really is a group-based game. And of course there are times where I'm playing magic build and I go up with someone with magic evasion and why can't I hit this guy? Of course I understand that feeling. When you take a step back, you just think about it as I'm playing with a group. If I'm playing with a party of 6 or with my guild or whatever, you rely on those kind of group plays and group strategies to help win it. That's what we feel is the strength of TL, is group-based PvP. So while yes, you as an individual maybe have that, you can't always beat every class. If you go at it as a group and your party is well diverse and you don't just stack, 5 staff players, then you'll be able to typically take down every other group as well. And so that's kind of how I look at it. I don't really look at it from the lens of the 1v1, because it's just not how we balance the game. It was never our intention for it to be a 1v1 game, right? It's a group-based game, and so I feel okay with it right now.
All right, that's fair enough. Yeah. Okay, now I would like to shift the topic more to peace bosses. Maybe just a personal question for up front.
Okay, what's my performance?
Yeah, with which class you performed the best so far in peace bosses?
I feel like I've probably done the most damage as Invocator, but I've only gotten as high as rank 3. Playing Invocator, but I didn't start playing Invocator again until much later this tier. So actually my highest was with Liberator early on in tier 2, where I got rank 1. So while I think I've done the most damage as Invocator, my highest rank was actually as Liberator earlier on in the tier, where I got rank 1.
Fair enough. Yeah. Maybe the question for right now.
Wait, what's your highest?
My highest, first.
Oh, okay. Yeah, big time. I mean, I would expect nothing. I would expect nothing less from the theory crafting master.
A lot of times just with Invocator, especially at the beginning of tier 2, when no one was playing it.
Right.
So it was pretty easy to get rank 1 to be fair. Now everyone is playing and it gets a lot harder.
Yeah.
What a lot of people notice is it's pretty easy to get rank 1 as an Invocator. So what I was asking myself is the healing you are getting from an Invocator, does it also count towards your contribution?
Yeah, healing does count towards contribution because that's how we try to help our healers. So healing is part of the equation.
But that then also means that for an Invocator, they will always be on the top of the list, right? Because they can heal themselves and deal a lot of damage at the same time. Is that something we could?
I mean, I don't think so. The thing about peace bosses, it's people who are at the top are trying to be at the top. And what I mean by that is we have in our guild Gladiator that's consistently always the highest whenever we go into peace bosses. Why? Because he's setting up his build for peace bosses. He's eating the right food that gives damage boost for that boss. He's changing his runes for the boss. He looks for his artifacts and change the artifacts for that boss. So there's a lot that can really go into who gets number 1 on that exact thing. And it's probably not a perfect equation, and so is there some advantage because Invocator can get heals or whatever? Maybe, but you know what? So does Greatsword. Whenever they cast Da Vinci's Courage, they get a lot of health regen and whatever else. So can they just take damage and cast that, and and not only for you, but you give it to your whole party, and so there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. So I'm a little hesitant to say, oh, Invocator is always number one, but yeah.
Yeah, no, it's fair enough. It's fair enough. But it's good to know that it's actually also counting. So, so if you play as an Invocator, as a Fury player, taking the self heal is of course really.
But if you're
important.
good, you're not going to take any damage.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter because it also counts to your healing.
Yeah, you're right.
Because
well, only if you actually heal something, but yeah.
Is it like this? Because I thought, like for example, in war games, you also the overhealing also counts as healing.
It did. Well, it counted on the scoreboard, but that was just for scoreboard. That's been adjusted now, and now it only counts actual healing.
Actual healing.
Yeah.
So you need to actually heal something.
Yeah.
So you need to run into. You actually need to get damage so that you heal yourself. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Good to know.
Do you think that helps you?
Yeah. I'll try it out. Okay. Perfect. Okay, but like in general, healers or supports, healers, tanks, for them it's a little bit harder to get high contribution, especially not only for getting drops, but also getting, I don't know, some arc boss fragments. Are you happy with how it is currently, or do you see that any?
I mean, not really, no. I mean, I don't like that it's harder for them to level up. It's a tricky situation. And I think it probably will boil down to us having to just rework how contribution comes. Maybe it's something like everybody gets a baseline and then top performers can only get some amount extra on that. We don't want to end up in a spot where it's pure RNG. We want people to feel like they have motivation, they tweak their builds. A lot of people like that. They're really going after high performing stats on that. We don't want to get rid of that. But we still also recognize like it's not quite good enough yet for tanks and healers. So that's definitely an area that we need to improve upon and adjust. And so we'll need to tweak that formula to see how we can improve it. As I said, maybe a situation where everyone gets a certain baseline contribution or something like that. And it's also tougher the later that the tier goes on. People are taking less damage. So even if you are playing healer, you're not healing anything because nobody's taking damage. So let's see how that plays out with the new bosses as well, and when people don't have tier 3 gear yet and stuff.
And right now, like when you go to those world bosses, they die really fast, I would say.
Yeah, right? That's true.
So like, they last maybe two rotations of your spells, and then the boss is done.
Not that fast, but yeah.
3 rotations. Are there any plans to adjust that?
Well, we have the new tier 3 bosses that are coming. So these are going to be upgraded versions of the tier 1 bosses. So similar to how we upgraded Teven and Bellandir, we'll be upgrading the existing tier 1 bosses. And so those will once again be a challenge because everyone won't be fully geared out. It's a situation where it's never super long. We don't want these to be 20-minute battles. We don't think that people will really enjoy that. We think that they like coming in, doing something a little bit different, getting their reward and sort of moving on. So it's not our intention that peace bosses are suddenly going to take 10 minutes. We do view them as shorter battles, shorter content, quick reward type of content. But we do think it will take longer at the start of the tier, and then like everything else, will get easier and easier over time. So if you want a longer battle, we really view that as the PvP modes, GVG or Dominion. Peace mode, we feel pretty good where it's at. It is a little bit fast now, but as I mentioned, we're at the very end of the tier. So that will take a little bit longer, but we don't have too many qualms about the speed that it's taking right now.
Fair enough. Getting the new tier 3 items with the new bosses makes sense.
Yeah.
That battle will take a little bit longer then again.
Yeah. And when the rewards are fresh, of course, it always it's more enjoyable, right?
Yeah.
And so, bosses are primarily for gear. So once you have all your gear for your main and your second set, they of course lose a little bit of their allure. But that's a little bit natural as well too, right? That once you recycle and you're getting through a new set, you're once again kind of reinvigorated to go and perform in those.
Yeah, but I understood the question because right now it just really feels very, very fast. But yeah, we were getting soon new ones, so that's fine. Yeah. Then next question is regarding artifact and runes. So I think you heard the question probably quite a few times already today.
Yeah.
But
this is gonna be good. I'm gonna give you a good answer.
When we will get rune presets?
Rune presets are coming.
Nice.
So they'll be here in Q4. I don't have an exact date, but they will be here in Q4. And they're just taking a little bit longer, not because we don't want to bring them, but there's just a little bit more back-end work than maybe players realize, just because of how runes were initially set up in that back-end. They weren't really set up with this kind of preset in mind. So we're having to redo that. Basically invisible work to the player, but still something we need to get through. And so they are going to come in Q4. and they'll be tied to your equipment set loadouts.
Is there any limitation or anything like this? No, it's just tied to your...
It'll be tied to your, similar to how artifacts are tied to your, your equipment set.
Okay, makes sense, makes sense. Then the next one is regarding artifacts. I'm not sure. Not so many people are happy with the new UI that we got. It's still kind of frustrating to use, and like I also didn't have opened all my chests that I have because I'm too lazy to go all through all of the artifacts. It's just not worth the time, I feel like. So are there probably not? I'm not sure if you received the feedback from the community. What do you do with the feedback?
Well, of course, we've received the feedback from the community. It'd be hard to not hear this feedback. So, I get it. And let me first say, like, we are revamping artifacts as a whole. We're not just going to do the UI. Maybe I want to walk you a little bit through the journey we went through, right? It's like when we first came up with the artifact system, our original intention was that it would be a way to just kind of consistently be seeking these kind of smaller improvements to really min-max your build, right? We thought that it would be a situation where, hey, I like to really min-max for every boss that I fight, so I'm going to look for the undead bonus damage for the raid, and I'm going to look for, skill damage boost for PvP, and whatever it is, right? And then it would be a lot of that for min-max players, and that average players would just take decent artifacts, rely on the set bonus, and kind of move on with their life. And in theory, that has happened. The problem is that it's happened, of course, in a way that nobody likes, right? It's like people who do min-max are doing it, but they hate how cumbersome it is. And the average player is just frustrated because they have all these artifacts that they feel like is maybe missing power that they could be getting. We a bit underplayed how much that might upset people to feel like, well, maybe there's power there, but you're not really giving me a way to check it. So we're going to revamp that. We realized we missed the mark. We tried to improve it with the UI, and we missed the mark again. So here we go, round 3. If it was up to me, we would just nuke it into orbit, but here we are. So we're going to go round 3, and we're just going to change the overall structure of the system. We will take artifacts, and we're going to shrink the stat pool. So there's not going to be just kind of this huge array of different stats, making it really impossible to get a useful artifact. We'll shrink them to really only useful stats. And then when you get new artifacts, you're hoping to get kind of like an upgraded version. Not quite like runes, but in the similar vein. And we'll share more details as we really finalize and hone in on that. But that's the plan. And so we'll shift from this feeling of I'm getting hundreds of artifacts to you get them much less frequently, but they feel more meaningful and they're pretty much always useful, and you're just kind of seeking that upgrade. So we'll make that adjustment. We're currently targeting in like late October, early November for that. And so, hopefully that kind of helps the overall vision of artifacts really come to life better.
And it's like the old artifacts, like the whole progress is going to be more or less wiped. And
well, we're still working on that. Or? Yeah, we're still working on that, on like how it will be played with the old artifacts. Like I don't really recommend hoarding stuff. I'm not big on hoarding. Like generally as like, developer and publisher, we don't like the idea that when we have something new or a system, if you've been hoarding things forever, you get this big advantage. We don't like that. So I don't really recommend hoarding, but I don't know exactly yet how we will tie the old ones to the new ones. We're still working through those details.
Okay, but that's, I would say, good news.
I hope so, yeah.
For some people, that's also frustrating, of course, because they maybe min-maxed a lot, and now they...
Well, hopefully they've gotten a lot of benefit from it in the meantime.
True. Okay, perfect. Okay, then maybe another question regarding, we talked about that the world bosses might have not so much HP, but it's also not only for the world bosses, it's also like more or less for all the content right now in the late game, like let's say contracts, open world dungeons, everything is like really low on HP. And I think with tier 3 we are not getting a map extension, so that means we're doing probably the same daily contracts, the same weekly contracts. So when we get tier 3 items, we will kill the mobs even faster. And it feels a little bit maybe too fast. What do you have any plans on adjusting the HP maybe, or like making it a little bit more difficult, because it feels more like sometimes more like a job doing those than just really like exciting content?
I mean, I think it depends who the person is on how easy or hard it is. If it's a fresh level 50 or level 55 who doesn't have it, if we just buff the HP, that hurts them. And of course, we have daily content. We have stuff that we have for people to do daily. We've introduced ways to shorten that for people. Of course, we have Da Vinci's Favor. We've added the ability to open extra co-op dungeon chests and things. So we have looked for ways to kind of shrink that down because we understand for some of our more hardcore players, maybe it's no longer as meaningful. So we just have to always remember there's a wide spectrum of players that are engaging with content. And some content, like solo dungeons, you can cover that by having a normal, a hard, and a very hard. But contracts, you can't really do that type of thing, right? And so it's more difficult. We don't really have plans to adjust that heavily. And if I'm being blunt, I don't really think that if I made the mobs take 2 seconds to kill instead of 1 second, that you would find it particularly more meaningful. So we don't really have major plans for that. The Abyss dungeon, I think, is interesting, right? When Tier 2 came out, the Abyss dungeons were challenging. I mean, you go to Crimson, you better go with a real party, a healer, a tank, everything. Of course, now it's eased up. So, yeah, we are planning also on some Abyss dungeon revamps that will come a little bit later, not quite in September, but a little bit later in Q4. And we think that will give a little bit more meaning to stuff for more hardcore players that are a bit more advanced.
Maybe also the old Abyss dungeons or just the new ones?
It will cover, all of them will be used in, or I don't know about all of them maybe, but we'll use multiple of them for this new revamp. I don't want to share too many details because things could change, but we are working on them specifically to give them a bit more exciting nature than they currently have. Because I don't know about you, but I really enjoyed them when Tier 2 launched because, again, that challenge was there. And so we want to bring a little bit of that challenge back without hurting the average player who maybe is not ready for that challenge yet.
I always liked it that you had to build like your own, like a good group, right? You needed a tank, you needed a healer. It felt good, and then you go in and then you farm. You also had like to optimize your build so that you actually do a lot of AoE damage. And now it like started to become, okay, you just put 6 people, just go there and just kill it.
Well, MMOs are really, in my opinion, thrive with, of course, as many players as possible, but also just a wide variety of the types of players. But when you have a wide variety of players, that also means you need a wide variety of content that satisfies that many players. And so that's always something that we're working on. We always want to make sure that we're bringing more content that can be enjoyed by more people, and working on how do we make sure we structure things for hardcore players, average players, casual players, because all of them help TL feel alive.
Yeah, true. Right. So we just recorded today the Creator Roundtable.
Yeah, that's fun.
That was fun. So we talked about a lot of the new content. Do you think we will get a robot maybe 2025 or 2026?
Yeah, I mean, I know that's a really sought after question, and like we want to share stuff with you. I mean, when you're working on something, you want to share that with people. You want them to be aware of it. It's just, the challenge always ends up becoming, what if something doesn't come to life like we think? And we've already told you we're doing this, and then we don't actually think it meets the expectation. That can have kind of a sort of negative effect as well if we have to take that back or whatever. So what I would say is we're still committed to continuing to tell you about stuff as early as possible when we feel confident. We don't want to do it so prematurely that we can't even give you details about it. It's still more of an idea than an actual system, this type of thing. And we try to do it like through Ion Elysium and Tico Talks. We try to reveal stuff that's coming when we feel confident about the change, when we know that it's going to bring value. So I can't tell you exactly when we'll reveal kind of the next major beat or the next major pieces of content. We're really focused right now on September, to be honest. We have Orb, Hyperboost, Battlegrounds, Dimensional Trials, Housing. I mean, there's so many big pieces of content. I think as we get closer to that and we reveal more and more of the content, everyone, I think, is going to feel how big this update really is, even more so than maybe people think right now.
And I think it's also good, like, always to get people hyped, right?
Right.
But like the thing is, like, with if we just have like some picture where it's on, it just often goes really viral on like some, let's say, Reddit or something like this. So just as like it's good to have that actually on a paper sometimes. So if people that might not play the game, might not watch the videos, so they don't know.
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, it's a good point.
What content comes up?
It's a good point.
Coming up.
Maybe we'll have to listen to you.
Maybe. One last question.
All right.
So we got recently a lot of PvE content. We now getting the Battlegrounds also in September. Do you have any plans or any direction for 2026? Will we get way more PvP content? Do we continue the trend with a lot of PvE content? What is there the focus internally right now?
I don't really view it as going one way or the other. I mentioned to you a little bit before that like we feel MMOs are at their best when you have a wide range of player types and they're all interacting and playing together. That stimulates the economy. It stimulates just how players engage, what the community talks about, the types of events you get to have. So we don't really view it as one or the other. Like we're focused on both, not just PvE, PvP, but also now lifestyle. We've of course added housing and other things. So we want to have a breadth of content, and we feel the same way going into 2026. We're not going to start ignoring one or the other. We want to make sure we can satisfy both player bases, and that's why in this update, you've seen us take this approach, right? We're going to have battlegrounds. We're also bringing PvE stuff. We're bringing lifestyle stuff. So this is a major beat for us, and we really hope that we're bringing something for everybody. That's really what our goal is. Our goal is that everybody feels that as much as possible, they're getting something, that shows that we're caring about them.
Yeah, I think it's good. I think like for an MMORPG, having a wide variety of content is important.
We feel the same way. Yeah.
Okay, thanks,
All
Tico.
right. Yeah, thanks
for the invitation.
Yeah.
And
it was good. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the interview. I was sadly not able to ask all the questions that I wanted because the interview got a little bit too long, but I think we got a lot of valuable information here. If you think we should have something like this more often, please let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching and see ya in the next one.